Hey, welcome to Attack the Stack. If you like that, try this. No, it's not February. That is to say, it's not Black History Month. But I think subjects like this should be addressed every month. So here I am doing my small part. I want to highlight representation in games. Specifically today, I want to highlight Black representation in games. Even more specifically, I'd like to highlight Black representation as the lead character in games. So all of the games in this list today feature main characters that you play as that are Black. I have to say, this list was difficult to make due to the incredibly small selection of games with Black lead characters. It's disappointing, but hopefully the video game industry can change that sooner than later. If we missed any, definitely let us know below in the comment section. Thanks in advance. Here we go. Papo Yo is a fantasy adventure game. The game involves a young Brazilian boy, Kiko, who, while hiding from his abusive alcoholic father, finds himself taken to a dreamlike favela and meeting a normally docile creature, Monster. The player, as Kiko, can interact with Monster and manipulate the buildings of the favela in unique ways, such as stacking individual shacks on each other to complete puzzles and progress in the game. Papo Yo was designed by Vander Caballero, who created the story based on his own past in dealing with an abusive alcoholic father. This was one of the first games I played that actually made me pay attention to racing games, and specifically how diversity can influence the types of games that are made, and the stories that they tell.
Tell him I'm on my way.
Mafia III is an action-adventure game developed by Hangar 13 and published by 2K Games. Set within the fictional city of New Bordeaux, based on New Orleans, in 1968, the single-player story follows Lincoln Clay, a criminal and war veteran who aims to build a new criminal organization while seeking revenge on the Italian mob. After deciding on recreating New Orleans in 1968, the development team drew influence from the series' previous projects and designed the game around Clay to replicate the core structure of its predecessors. Much of the development work constituted the open world creation, and several team members conducted field research around Louisiana to capture footage for the design team. The game's soundtrack features several licensed songs composed by various musicians who were active during the time period. Upon release, the game received praise directed at its story, characters, darker themes, and soundtrack.
People will up and go mad when they believe their life is over.
In the road!
This other time.
The Walking Dead Season 1 is an episodic adventure game developed and published by Telltale Games. Based on the Walking Dead comic book series, the game consists of 5 episodes. The game takes place in the same fictional world as the comic, with events occurring shortly after the onset of the zombie apocalypse in Georgia. However, most of the characters are original in the game, which centers on university professor and convicted criminal Lee Everett, who rescues and subsequently takes care of a young girl named Clementine. Lee becomes a protective figure to her to help her reunite with her parents. Unlike many graphic adventure games, Walking Dead does not emphasize puzzle solving, but instead focuses on story and character development. The story is affected by both the dialogue choices of the player and their actions during QuickTime events, which can often lead to, for example, certain characters being killed or an adverse change in the disposition of a certain character or characters towards Lee. The choices made by the player carry over from episode to episode. Choices were tracked by Telltale and used to influence their writing in later episodes. The Walking Dead has been critically acclaimed, with reviewers praising the harsh, emotional tone of the story and the empathetic connection established between Lee and Clementine. It won year-end accolades, including Game of the Year awards from several gaming publications, and is considered to be one of the greatest games of all time. Its success has been seen as constituting a revitalization of the weekend adventure game genre. This is one of those games that you should play with a loved one, as it's definitely like watching a TV show.
Okay, what can I do for you?
Who are you again?
So you back on the block, huh? Yeah, homie. Cheers. Yeah, it's good to see you back.
Grand Theft Auto San Andreas is an action-adventure game developed by Rockstar North and published by Rockstar Games. It is the 7th title in the Grand Theft Auto series and the follow-up to Grand Theft Auto Vice City. The game, set within an open-world environment that players can explore and interact with at their leisure, focuses on the story of former gangster Carl C.J. Johnson, who is brought back home by the death of his mother, only to become involved in a long journey that sees him exploring the fictional U.S. state of San Andreas, which is heavily based on California and Nevada. The game features references to many real-life elements of the world, such as its cities, regions, and landmarks, with its plot heavily based on several real-life events in Los Angeles in the early 1990s, including the rivalry between real-life street gangs, the 1980s, early 1990s crack epidemic, the LAPD Rampart scandal, and the 1992 Los Angeles riots. Unlike its predecessor, San Andreas brought with it new elements of gameplay that would be later incorporated in future titles, including RPG-style style mechanics, customization options with both clothing and vehicle appearances, a vast array of activities and mini-games, and the inclusion of gambling games. Considered by many reviewers to be one of the greatest video games ever made, San Andreas received critical acclaim with praise directed at its music, story, and gameplay. This might just be my favorite Grand Theft Auto game, and as a resident of Los Angeles now for more than a dozen years, I can definitely tell you it nails the setting and some of the culture.
A few years ago, this broken-ass system marked me as a criminal risk, linked me to some shit I didn't even do because it was probable.
Watch Dogs 2 is an action-adventure game developed by Ubisoft Montreal and published by Ubisoft. Set within a fictionalized version of the San Francisco Bay Area, the game is played from a third-person perspective, and its open world is navigated on foot or by vehicle. Players control Marcus Holloway, a hacker who works with the hacking group DedSec to take down the city's advanced surveillance system known as CTOS. There are multiple ways to complete missions, and each successful assignment increases the follower count of DedSec. Cooperative multiplayer allows for competitive one-on-one combat and connecting with other players to neutralize a player who is causing havoc. Ubisoft Montreal studied player feedback from the first game to assess what could be improved in Watch Dogs 2, and the setting was researched by making frequent trips to California. Ubisoft Reflections was responsible for overhauling the driving mechanic. Real hackers were consulted to validate scripts and game mechanics for authenticity, and references to real-life hacktivism were fictionalized, like the Project Chinology protest. The original soundtrack was composed by Hudson Mohawk. The game was released to overall positive reception from critics, which praised the game for improving upon the original Watch Dogs in areas like the hacking, setting, characters, and driving. A tech-savvy black guy in popular media. Definitely not a stereotype. Love it. But he's still criminal, and we've got some work to do there.
The corners of this world speak of a man who fights without being seen.
Assassin's Creed Origins is an action-adventure game developed by Ubisoft Montreal and published by Ubisoft. It is the 10th major installment in the Assassin's Creed series and the successor to Assassin's Creed Syndicate. The game is set in ancient Egypt near the end of the Ptolemaic period and recounts the secret fictional history of real-world events. The story follows a Magi named Bayek and explores the origins of the centuries-long conflict between the Brotherhood of Assassins, who fight for peace by promoting liberty, and the Order of the Ancients, Forerunners in the Templar Order, who desire peace through the forced imposition of order. Origins received positive reviews from critics who praised the story, characters, voice acting, reworked gameplay systems, immersive world of Egypt, historical accuracy, and the visuals. I was always an Assassin's Creed fan, but starting with Origins, it really became one of my favorite annualized series out there. RPG systems just make things better, what can I say?
Did you hear that, Cutter? That's the sound of the outer spur. It's been a long time.
Starhawk is a third-person shooter developed by Lightbox Interactive and published by Sony Computer Entertainment. It is the spiritual successor to Warhawk. The most notable change from Warhawk is the addition of a single-player story mode, which was intended to be included in Warhawk but was eventually removed. A new system called Build and Battle allows players to build structures such as bunkers, defenses, and armories in the midst of battle, giving the game a real-time strategy feel while remaining a third-person shooter. The game includes flying mechs called Hawks. A player respawns into a landing craft which they can steer within a limited range to reach the battlefield. Starhawk also has a cooperative mode similar in concept to the Horde mode in the Gears of War franchise. This is one of those overlooked first-party games from Sony during the PS3 generation, and it's worth checking out.
You killed my wife and my daughter. You turned me into this monster.
Prototype 2 is an open-world action-adventure game developed by Canadian studio Radical Entertainment and published by Activision. The game features a new protagonist, James Heller, as he goes on a quest to destroy the Blacklight virus. The story is one of revenge, as Heller wants to kill Alex Mercer, protagonist of the original prototype, after his family was killed in the outbreak of the Blacklight virus. James Heller can shapeshift and assume other people's identities and memories by consuming them. Also, Radical created a new dodging system and more realistic AI. Heller is able to use weapons in the game, such as ripping the Gatling guns off of tanks and using them against enemies. Heller can also sneak up on unsuspecting human enemies, inject them with the Blacklight virus, turning them into biobombs to blow up spectacularly. Heller also has superhuman strength and agility, near invulnerability to harm, near flight leaping and gliding, infinite stamina, increased speed, and has a sonar sense. So basically the game's philosophy is, here, go play.
Let's share our memories. Thanks to my sensor.
Safe and secure.
Remember Me is an action and adventure game developed by Don't Nod Entertainment and published by Capcom. The game's plot focuses on Nilin, a memory hunter working for an underground resistance called the Errorists. When the game starts, she has been stripped of nearly all of her memories by a mega corporation, Memorize. With the help of a mysterious man named Edge, she goes on a quest to bring down Memorize and recover her lost memories. Throughout the story, she is permitted to use her memory remix power to ultimately refurbish people's recollections. The combat consists of a modified combo system called Pressin. Remember Me was developed as the debut project of Don't Nod Entertainment, with one of the company's founding members, Jean-Maxime Maurice, as its director. Part of his goal for the game was to create a thought-provoking narrative and eventually settled on a female protagonist to help convey the story's themes. Remember Me was praised for its world design, Olivier Derivier's soundtrack, and the ambition of the story and the memory remix segments. I enjoyed this game a lot more than I thought I would, and it's a game for whatever reason people looked over, but the combat is reminiscent of the Batman Arkham games, and the story is actually pretty thought-provoking. It kind of lingers in your memory.
And you are?
Marlo Briggs.
Marlo Briggs and the Mask of Death is an action-adventure hack-and-slash game developed by Microsoft Studios and Zootfly. Marlo Briggs and the Mask of Death uses a real-time control scheme typical of other similar games such as the God of War and Devil May Cry franchises. Players may attack with their weapon, grapple with and throw enemies, and use magical attacks. Weapons and spells can be upgraded using experience points. The player may launch a swift attack using one button and a slow, strong attack with another. Combinations of the two attacks lead to combos. The player's current number of uninterrupted hits is kept counted on screen, with greater rewards resulting from a higher combo count. This game may not be as good as the franchises that inspired it, but I really appreciate that Microsoft Studios helped develop and publish this game. Just remember, a game doesn't have to be a masterpiece to be fun. If you liked the video or it helped you out, click the thumbs up button below. It really helps us out. If you think it could help others, share it. Of course, subscribe for more content like this and more. And if you have anything to add to our list, feel free to comment below. Thanks for watching and keep attacking.